Hey there, Sensei Mish here. You can see that there are some supplies behind me, some construction supplies. This is kind of a DIY project I wanted to record. I'm going to build myself a cutting dummy. If anybody has been watching any of Bram Frank's little daily videos, he has a cutting dummy on his out on his back deck. And when I went to go visit him, I saw it. I thought it was kind of cool. I've been inspired to make my own, but I don't really have any place here in the dojo to hang it on a wall, so I need it to be stationary or movable, I guess, kind of like my kicking pad there in the back. So that's what I'm going to accomplish today is building this. You can hang out with me while I do this. I'm also going to put a supply list at the bottom, a link in the comments, so you guys can see what I've used. And most of it, I've got, of course, the Home Depot logo back there. I do most of my shopping in Home Depot. This is not at all a plug for them, but that's just where I prefer to shop. However, there are a couple things I had to get at Lowe's because Home Depot just didn't have it. So let's figure out how to build this thing. Okay, so we're going to start with the base. I have a 24 inch by 24 inch base here, okay? I think it's a 3/4 inch thickness. I want to turn this into an octagon. I just don't want a square. I want it to be a little bit safer for for my mats. So I'm going to turn it into an octagon and kind of round the corners a little bit. The really cool thing about YouTube is that you learn cool things, just like what I'm doing here. So I learned to turn a square into an octagon. You take the total length from point to point and you multiply that by 0.42. In this instance, that's 10.04, I think, or something like that. And then you divide it by half. So, which is ends up being like 5.02. I think that's what it ends up being. 5.02 is my final number. So then what we do, let me kind of angle this down a little bit, is we find the middle, okay, and then we move this, we measure 5 inches in from, or 5 inches out from the center. And then we find the point here and find the point here and draw the line and cut. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so in theory, every edge should be the same length. So let's see what that is. So if we have that, that ends up being, I don't even know why I did that. That ends up being, ends up being about 10 inches. That's about 10 inches. That's about 10 inches. 10 inches. 10 inches. 10 inches. 10 inches. Sweet. Now we're ready to cut. Always make sure you have your ears and your eyes on. All right, on to the next step. To make a border, because I've got the octagon as the base, and I'm gonna have a 2x4 border around it. So now we're gonna cut out the pieces. Each edge is gonna be about 10 inches long, but I do need to factor in the angle, and I kind of want to make a neat design around. So I'm going to have the inside part be, it has to be 45 degrees. So I'm going to have 145 here for this angle, and then 145 here for this angle, and it'll just kind of make its way around. So let's get to that. Just like that. Right. So I actually had to cut it a little bit shorter because I want each one to meet up. So you'll see what I'm doing in a second. I lose my pencils sometimes. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this, okay? Now the problem is that I measured not enough to cut off. So now I have to cut off even more, but I did it early, so now I only got to recut 3 pieces. Maybe I should have studied better math, or, yeah, I should have paid attention in math. So if you can kind of see, that is what I'm looking at. So that type of design all the way around. I'll actually measure one of these and have the exact measurements because I did all this just, as you can see, just off the top of my head. Okay, so behind me I have eight pieces. Internal dimension is 7.5 inches. External dimension is 10.5 inches with that 45-degree angle. I have pre-sanded all these. I figured you guys didn't want to watch me sand stuff, but now I'm going to drill pilot holes in all of them, and then drill them all together so I have one nice big structure. Notice is I mark these so I can then connect them all up. Now we're going to screw this onto the bottom. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, this is my weight. I need to have that towards the back. So I want to edge this like that and then draw lines up underneath here because I need a base here and here. But I need enough room for the bucket to fit back here. And I've already drawn the lines, so now I'm going to cut them. But they're not exactly 45 degrees. And honestly, I couldn't tell you what degrees they are because, like I said earlier, I didn't pay attention in math. I'm sorry, Mr. Tamashiro, geometry, I sucked at it. Anyway, all right, so by looking at the angle of the slot here, I'm looking at 22.5 degrees. So we're going to cut this and see if it turns out. Sometimes you just got to do it by guessing. Not bad. Cut right across the line. So the magic number is 22.5, which I guess is half of a 45-degree angle. That's fine. Okay, so from a top angle, this is what we're looking at. This is our front, this is our back. This is going to be the base for our post holder. We're going to put that smack right in the middle, and probably closer to this end, okay? So let me do some bad measuring, and we will figure it out. That's Can't forget your bram knife. So, here we go. This is our base. Take this off. Of course, we can't take the sticker off. Ugh, what was I thinking? The reason I have a bucket is this is going to be our weight. And I bought some play sand. And we're going to put that in there and then we're going to seal it all up. About 50 pounds. 50 pounds should be fine. The reason I got play sand is because it comes dry. It's designed for, little play areas for kids, so it's, I'm assuming, it's clean, dry sand. So we're going to put that in there, and then that'll keep this from, and we'll seal it up. It is play sand. Just a few cents more than regular sand, but it is what it is. Of course, we can't forget the lid. There's our weight. All right, so now we do our pole. I bought an 8-foot 4x4 cedar post. And if you can't find a cedar post, I originally bought just a standard fence post, treated fence post, but I'm building a fence this summer, so I'll just have an extra one I don't need to buy because I really wanted cedar. And I found one. That was the other thing I couldn't get at Home Depot, but got that at Lowe's. Anyway, so I'm going to cut that height. It's all about you. I'm thinking cutting it at 6 feet because I have about 6 inches from my base. So that's all up to you, but I'm going to cut mine at 6 feet. Actually, I'm going to cut it twice. I'm going to cut it I'm going to do the first one at 6.5 feet and then put it in there to test it out. So good. We have a shoulder. What do you think? Cutting? I like it. Thank you, daughter. All right. All right, so we got quite a bit done. I did decide to cut it at 6 feet. I am 5'11", and you can kind of see how much higher it is. So this really is at 6.5 feet because this base is at 6. I still need to bolt this down, so let's do that. I'm going to do that right now. All right, so this base here, I just bolted it in. As you can see, I can lift this up. I can move it around. Still, it's going to be a little bit rocky. Let's put some weight in it. So this is still not perfect. It's got a little bit of rock to it. That's okay. Wasn't even though I try and be, visually perfect and nice, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But for you OCD people, you might have to work a little bit more on that. Now I could leave this in here like this, just bolted in, and it just gives you bolts that you can bolt in. There's also an option that I could actually put a bolt through it to actually secure it in, and I may do that. Haven't really decided yet. Wasn't really part of the plan, but as you can see, I have the bulk of this done. The next piece is the arms, and before we really get into that, we actually need to make the shoulder piece, and so let's get to that now. Before we continue, we need to build this joint, and actually we probably should have started with this joint because this takes about 24 hours to cure. You can see our little project sitting off here to the side. Anyway, forgive the little makeshift table here in the dojo. I'm still in here. I have a larger workspace, but there's another project going on there that I could not move. So But the whole point is that this will go into, it'll go onto a thread on the 4x4, and then PVC will come out here. And in fact, I'll just grab a piece of PVC. This will fit here, and then of course, as you can see, it already starts to hang. So the whole point is to have a bendable joint, which is great. Okay, so so when you're working, you can actually push the arm out of the way and etc. Okay, so we're going to build this, and in fact, before I even started this project, I built this just to make sure that my idea would work. All right, and so this is what I used. I'm going to put that off to the side. We're going to make 3 arms actually, and so you need a 3 1/4 inch coupler with a male thread end, and then you just need a coupler with 3/4 inch on either side. Okay, this, as you can see, I already cut this side off. This is a 1x12, and in fact, from here to there, it's actually 11 inches. This actually counts as inch here and an inch here. But this is a 1x12 extension spring. Okay, and we're only going to cut this at 3 inches. So this is 3 inches long to give me an inch or so in the center. So we're going to make 2 3-inch lengths. And I didn't even try and take this off. So, oh, and to do this, you will need a Dremel with a Hot Wheel and some Hot Wheels. And of course, to put everything together, you will need Gorilla Glue. Okay, so it does help to have all that stuff. Oh, and then a little bit of sandpaper. So let's move some of this stuff out of the way. Okay. Okay. All right, so we have our 2 pieces. Okay, we bring up our other pieces, and we bring up some sandpaper and our glue. Okay, get all out of the way. Now, the reason we have our sandpaper is the one way that this stuff actually connects on here and here gets a better grip is we want to basically sand the edges just so we can make sure it's got a good grip. And even though it's not, like, this is stainless steel, but you know what, I do it anyway. Okay, so the one thing about Gorilla Glue that you need to know, if you've never used it before, you have to get one of the sides a little bit wet. So what we're going to do is we are going to just do that. It doesn't have to be really wet, but I just wipe the inside, and that helps activate the glue. Okay, move that off to the side. And then, you know, you don't need to use a lot of Gorilla Glue, but I want to make this nice and thick, and we can always cut off the excess. So I take this and I'm gonna do a nice little bead and then put that in there. Now you can see that's loose, but that's okay. That Gorilla Glue is just gonna, it is going to kind of foam up and fill in our gaps. That's the whole point of getting it wet. Okay. I'm going to kind of twist it around there so it kind of gets all over the place. You can kind of see how it's, and I'm just going to put that right there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. All right, now I don't need to clamp these. I'm just going to let these sit here Okay? And we are going to come back in about 24 hours and see what they look like. Okay, so we are not yet at a full 24 hours. We're looking at more like, I don't know, well, it's been long enough, really. You can kind of see how the glue, it's hard. It hasn't fully cured, but it is hard. But see, check this out. That's exactly what we want. And you can kind of hear it pulling a little bit, but that's just on the edges. That's okay. Okay, that's no different than that. Okay, and then we got this one. We even got a little bit of paper there from that. But check that out. And we can pull, and we can pull. So this is great. Okay, so now I want to actually add my arms on here. I am going to use these. So I have this little, this is actually called a floor flange. A floor flange. So I actually bought 4 of these. Don't know if I'm going to use all of them, but when I might use 3. I was thinking, you know, Bram has 3. He has one at a higher level, one at about shoulder level, and one about here, or possibly even one at leg. So the other thought that I had was using even more. So because I'm 5'11", all right, so I'm going to do one at about my shoulder length. So I'm going to do one right about here, okay? And then, but I might have one just below it because, of course, I might have a shorter student, or I might put another one. So I started out with 4 of these, but I might actually end up with more. And that just allows us to customize it to whoever is training with us. So let's put at least a couple of these on so you get an idea of what I'm looking at. Okay, you see I have my high, my shoulder, and if you saw me do this, that's kind of where my stab is. So that's going to be my initial ones, all right? So this, of course, goes on. These just screw on, just like this. They should screw on nice. Okay. And then, of course, then I take my PVC. Now, this is a 2 foot PVC pipe, 3/4 inch, but I want it to be about arm's length. So if we're like this, I don't know, if I want to, like, Bram has these really cool hands he's made, so if I want to put on hands, I want to cut these down. So I'll probably, plus I also have to figure in for the 3 or 4 inches here. So if we put this in here like this and do that, I'm going to cut it right about here. Okay, so as you can see, I have cut this. I've cut it I cut maybe 4 or 5 inches off. I just did this, okay, measured it from the wrist, but I also took into account this. Now, on top of this, I need my pool noodle. Now, it is currently April, end of April. I was in Walmart the other day and they are already starting to sell these, but of course this stuff I have left over. Since I teach knife, I have a ton of these around the dojo. So I just have these, but you can still get them. So wherever you buy your pool noodles, whether it be Walmart or Bram goes to Publix or any Fred Meyer's or Kroger's or I don't know. We're in the Pacific Northwest. Wherever you guys are, you know where to buy your pool noodles or just ask around. So the reason I'm using 3/4 inch is because this will fit here almost perfectly. And then once I have that down, of course I have my knife and I can test that and come through. So of course I didn't measure before I did this, so I'm just going to, I'm going to guess it's there, and I'm just going to come through and I'm just going to cut, and I guessed somewhat correctly, okay? So this on here, I now have that arm so that I can step here, okay? Or as we're playing, let's move this over here, okay? Let's even put our weight on the back so it doesn't move, okay? All right, so if we're practicing our 1/4, okay? 1/4, this gives me some type of move. So I can come in and I can cut. I actually got to cut, and then I can come down here. Or I've got, I can come here. Then maybe I can come here and cut. All right? Or I come here and I cut through and I move and I cut again. All right? So there you have it, a cutting dummy. Of course, lots of potential. Okay? I can then move this up here. I could have all 3. I've got that 12 coming down. All right? The cool thing about this is not a lot of pressure, but if you can see, I've already cut. I've cut there. So when we talk about when Bram or any of you, if you're instructors, when we talk about going up and not putting a lot of pressure on and dragging that across and it cutting already, I just, just going, I've already cut. Now just imagine if there was actual pressure. So if I'm here and I cut. So I'm going to get a lot of use out of this tool. This is awesome. My daughter, she's a little bit shorter, so I might put a 4th one here. Maybe something down here. I did buy some 45 angles for legs, so I may put on a leg down here. So this has so much potential from here. And of course, there's a little bit of movement just because I think the base is off, but I can work out those kinks later. Now, I've already thought that I want to stain this whole thing, and then my ugly green base, I'm going to paint that. Take the sticker off, paint it black, or maybe even paint it brown. But as you can see, I've got my areas that I can work in. So there you go. There's a cutting dummy. I'm going to put directions below, all the parts needed, at least for this and even for the leg. And then we will we'll see you on the next video. Happy training. Don't cut yourself. Oh yeah, and be good to your uke.